Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. We have some exciting news in regards to the HBO Game of Thrones spin-off show titled House of Dragon. Now, some of you may know, but in case you haven't heard, the very first pixel has been revealed for this exciting new, highly anticipated fantasy drama series. The official report from HBO is that this was leaked, but I personally think they're attempting to build hype around the series, which is already palpable. Now we're going to jump right into the breakdown of this pixel. As some of you may know, Game of Thrones was a hit HBO drama that premiered back in 2011 and became an explosive pop culture phenomenon. You may know the Game of Thrones series is actually based off a collection of books called A Song of Ice and Fire, written by George R.R. Martin. There are 5 books currently out, with a 6th being right around the corner, as well as a planned 7th book. You may not know that the show's first 4 seasons were heavily based on the books, with the last 4 seasons being an amalgam of things from the books and some detective guesswork by the brilliant David Benioff and D.B. Weiss. As some of you may know, A Song of Ice and Fire is actually referencing the 2 elements ice and fire. Ice is actually made up of a 2-to-1 ratio of hydrogen and oxygen atoms, while fire consists primarily of carbon dioxide, water vapor, oxygen, and nitrogen. As you may be aware, George R.R. Martin is in fact a human, and the human body is actually made up of about 60% water and 0% fire. Water in its solid state form is actually ice, and that's where we get the full title, A Song of Ice and Fire. Now, as you may know, the song part of the title actually refers to a musical melody often created by man-made objects called instruments. Some of you may know instruments come in a wide variety of shapes and sizes, and each one is used for a very specific purpose. Instruments are capable of creating notes, which are sound vibrations that are pleasing to the ear. By plucking on a string or blowing air through a tube, you can create vibrations in the air which will produce a sound. As some of you may know, grouping certain notes together can create what's called a melody, or a collection of notes, which is commonly referred to as a song. Now, because ice and fire are contradictory elements that cannot coexist, George R.R. Martin has very cleverly created a deeper meaning with this title that has many layers to it. How does one create a song by adding ice and fire to it? The simple answer is you cannot. It would destroy the instruments. No, instead what George has done here with this title is he has created a metaphor. Now, some of you may know this, but a metaphor is a figure of speech in which a word or phrase is applied to an object or action to which it is not literally applicable. Now, the figure of speech in this instance has been applied to the elements of ice and fire, but we are not talking about them in a literal sense. This song cannot literally exist, and so we have to use our imaginations to conceive it in a figurative manner. Now that we have a quick and basic understanding of the title, let's move on to the breakdown. However, if you are interested in a more in-depth breakdown of the title, I do have a 57-minute video about it, which I will link in the description. Now, before we get to the pixel, here's a brief summary of the show. As some of you may know, Ned Stark is summoned to King's Landing after the death of his friend Jon Arryn, which he believes to have been a plot by the Lannisters. The Lannister twins, Queen Cersei and her brother Jaime, are actually having a sexual affair, which is weird because they're siblings, and when they have sex, that's actually called incest. As some of you may know, incest is a taboo, but also it is a tab utilized in many porn sites and has seen a surge in popularity since the late 2010s. There are now nearly 200,000 incest title-related videos on Pornhub alone, and while this may seem like a disturbing trend, some shows like Netflix's Dark manage to pull it off with some semblance of class. Back to the recap, Ned Stark ends up getting his head chopped off, and then Season 2 starts with a clash of kings as the Baratheons squabble for their right to the throne with the Shadow Vagina baby being born. One thing logically leads to another, and a resurrected bastard is rescued by a genocidal mad queen riding a dragon with a zombie to prove to another mad genocidal queen that zombies are real. Things come to a satisfying conclusion, and now we are eagerly awaiting for the new spin-off show titled House of Dragon. There were several other spin-off shows that were possibly in the making that have now since been scrapped and will never be brought to light. They have absolutely no business occupying your brain space, but I will go ahead and read these off to you now. Game of Thrones 10,000 Ships, Game of Thrones 9 Voyages, Game of Thrones Flea Bottom, Game of Thrones The Tales of Dunk and Egg, and Game of Thrones an animated series. In case you missed these, I will now read this list again, but in reverse order. Game of Thrones, an animated series, Game of Thrones, Tales of Dunk and Egg, Game of Thrones, Flea Bottom, Game of Thrones, 9 Voyages, and Game of Thrones, 10,000 Ships. Now, before we start the breakdown, let me quickly remind you to like this video and subscribe. As some of you may know, subscribing to this channel will actually notify you whenever I upload new videos, and they will be placed in your subscription feed whenever you open the YouTube app. YouTube is a free video sharing website that makes it easy to watch online videos. You can even create and upload your own videos to share with others. Originally created in 2005, YouTube is now one of the most popular sites on the web, with visitors watching around 6 billion hours of video every month. Please also share this video to as many friends and family members as possible, as it really does help grow the channel. You can share it via email or text for a more direct impact. However, and some of you may know this, you can also share via other social media applications such as Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. Social media is basically a website or application that enables users to create and share content or to participate in social networking. Now, without further delay, here is the pixel that was leaked by Reddit user HotPie's Uvula. Now, because many fans have already seen this, HBO went ahead and officially released this pixel as a teaser to a behind-the-scenes photo to a making-of Blu-ray featurette of a documentary based on the Instagram account of one of the understudy actors playing a role in the spin-off series of Game of Thrones titled House of Dragon. It has a bluish tint to it, and the hex code is #0000FF, which leads me to believe it is in fact royal blue and not navy or sky blue like some of the community members have been theorizing. However, one particularly vigilant Reddit sleuth ran this pixel through an AI which scanned every single frame of all 8 seasons of Game of Thrones to find a perfect match to this hex code. Now, the only time that this specific color appears is in the shadow under Khal Drogo's armpit in Season 1, Episode 8, The Pointy End, exactly 32 minutes, 25 seconds, and 8 frames into the episode. This basically confirms that Jason Momoa will be returning to his iconic role for this new series. Now, let's get back to that title, House of Dragon. What could that possibly mean? Well, George R.R. Martin famously wrote the 1987 CBS original series Beauty and the Beast, which was a modern-day reimagining of the classic French fairy tale La Belle et la Bête. Though the series was successful for its time, it was quickly overshadowed by a more famous adaptation, the Academy Award-winning Disney animated film Beauty and the Beast, a much more child-friendly musical version of the story. This enraged Martin, who felt that the fantasy genre had more potential for adult storytelling than his contemporaries believed was profitable. Now, 30 years later, George has an internationally acclaimed franchise on his hands, one that has captured the collective imaginations of millions of people. Now George is back to take his revenge on the Disney brand with his new series, House of Dragon. It is quite obvious that the title is in reference to the 2001 Disney Channel series, Mickey's House of Mouse. More specifically, the Halloween special, Mickey's House of Villains, where the dragon Maleficent appears in Mickey Mouse's comedy club. From these details, I can make an educated guess that House of Dragon will be a biting satire of Disney's corporate greed, played by all of these characters we know and love from Game of Thrones into a popular 21st century comedy club, where Sean Bean and Peter Dinklage will do stand-up in character and replay clips from the original Game of Thrones series, introducing new audiences to these characters and stories with absolutely no context. It will be boring, it will spit in the face of everything that came before it, and it will be the greatest piece of satire of the modern age. Everything in George R.R. Martin's career has been leading to this moment. I hope you all enjoyed this breakdown. Please support me on Patreon for more in-depth breakdown videos. Once again, my name is Alt Red Team Preston Smoke Geek Awesome, and I hope you've enjoyed this video.